Buying a nice car, owning a house, taking trips abroad. These have long been standard measures of a middle-class lifestyle. But by 2025, these are becoming increasingly unaffordable for the average family. Yet, when you look at inequality in Britain and even the US, all studies show it is on the decline. The gap between the poor and the rich is shrinking. So what's going on? Why do so many people see their lifestyles deteriorating while the experts say things have never been better? Well, when you take a deeper look into the figures, you can see that even though the gap between the rich and poor is narrowing, the gap between the middle and the rich is widening. That means the average person sees himself becoming more and more like the poorest in society, while the lifestyles of the richest become increasingly unattainable. As the trend of the disappearing middle class is only set to continue, in this video I want to discuss what the factors are driving this trend and what it means for society. First of all, let's discuss the minimum wage. Introduced in 1999 by Tony Blair, it's been considered by many to be one of Britain's best ever economic policies, with both Conservative and Labour governments raising it by more than the average worker's wage increases year after year. As an example of what this looks like, the average bar worker, traditionally on minimum wage, has a salary 23% higher in 2023 than 2011 in real terms, whereas the average worker's salary in this time frame only rose 1.9%, so over 10 times less. There are very few so-called low-paid jobs in Britain by 2025, having fallen to 3% of the total, and government policy can be thanked for this. Minimum wage increases have long been thought to be almost an economic cheat code, a politically popular way to increase wages for the poorest in society, with the negative economic consequences warned of by many never materializing. But it does seem like there are some insidious effects that might not easily be overtly linked. For example, if a white-collar job like a graphic designer pays £22,000 per year, which will soon be below the full-time minimum wage of £25,000 in April, what is the point of paying tens of thousands of pounds for an education or spending years of valuable time getting upskilled? It makes far more sense to just work a minimum wage job or even go to the extreme of dropping out the labour force entirely and living off welfare. In Britain, where there's an obsession with class, this is particularly a problem. The British Medical Association made much of the fact that on an hourly basis, junior doctors could expect to earn less than a prep worker. Now, some might turn their noses up at this, thinking it's pure snobbery. Are junior doctors really better people than prep workers, and so deserving of a higher wage? But this is misguided. Wages are not meant to be about morals, they're meant to be related to the economic value the job provides. And the economic value of a junior doctor is obviously higher than a minimum wage worker. Disincentivizing the most productive members of society from doing economically valuable jobs is a surefire way to create a zero growth economy. Another interesting phenomenon related to the increasing minimum wage is the student loan threshold. From April 2025, the student loan repayment threshold is set to be below a full-time minimum wage job. That means if you graduate but end up unable to find a white-collar job and are stacking shelves in Tesco for minimum wage, you will pay an effective marginal 37% tax rate regardless. In 2012, the introduction of the student loan threshold at £25,000 was seen as justifiable, as that kind of wage was only achievable with the wage premium a degree gave you. But this logic has been completely abandoned with Britain's creaking finances, and now even minimum wage workers coming straight out of university will have to pay their loans back. Whilst minimum wages continue to rocket up, professions traditionally considered to be middle class, think teachers, nurses, policemen, and even accountants, have all seen their incomes erode over time. High-paying jobs are increasingly only found in a concentrated number of industries like big tech, finance, and corporate law. Tech workers in the US, for example, now account for 1 in 6 of the top 5% of salaries, up from 1 in 20 in 1990. This level of sectoral dominance over high salary jobs is historically unprecedented. It's also harder than ever to get one of these highly competitive jobs in one of the chosen industries. In 1980s America, 40% of the highest paying jobs didn't require any degree at all, Whereas in modern America, half of the top jobs require an advanced postgraduate degree. Not even just a normal degree, an advanced postgraduate degree. This trend is similar in the UK, but with there being an oversupply of graduates compared to the number of graduate jobs available, it's an even more dire situation for the middle class. The rise of the welfare lifestyle. As the wages of traditionally middle-class jobs decline, it has become increasingly easier to live a life on welfare and not bother with the hassle of a low-paid job at all. The number of people who are registered on universal credit with zero work requirements has shot up during the pandemic, nearly quadrupling from 750,000 people in 2019 to 2.9 million by October 2024. This is mostly due to people registering as disabled and/or too sick to work. Much of the blame for this has been placed at the feet of the Conservatives, and specifically Theresa May, who made mental health disabilities equivalent to physical ones when it comes to claiming benefits. Despite this being a noble goal in name, there have been many who have taken advantage of it, and even Tony Blair himself has recently spoken on a podcast about the rise of people self-identifying mental health issues and not working.
I think we have become very, very focused on mental health, and with people self-diagnosing on mental health, and I think we need a proper public conversation about that, because we're spending vastly more on mental health now than we did a few years ago. And it's hard to see what the objective reasons for that are. And if we're not careful, we get into a position where people, life has its ups and downs, and everybody experiences those. And you've got to be careful of encouraging people to think they've got some sort of condition other than, simply confronting the challenges of life. And so we need a proper public conversation about this, because you really cannot afford to be spending the amount of money we're spending on mental health, and the ramp up of that just in these last few years has been dramatic.
The Labour Party seems to have caught on, and they're going to be launching a crackdown on disability benefits in 2025, with Liz Kendall, the Secretary of State for the Department of Work and Pensions, saying the following.
Under our changed Labour Party, if you can work, there'll be no option of a life on benefits. Not just because the British people believe rights should go hand in hand with responsibilities, but because being unemployed or lacking basic qualifications when you're young can harm your job prospects and wages for the rest of your life. And this is not good enough for our young people or for our country.
Now, they face huge criticism from both the left and the right for this potential crackdown, but I will give them some credit for attempting to make tough but necessary decisions when Britain's projected budget deficit is set to skyrocket over the next few decades, and we need to choose between nice to haves and need to haves. One of the benefit schemes that has drawn the most controversy recently has been the Personal Independence Payment, or PIP. The enhanced version of this is for people who struggle with mobility, getting out of the house and so on, and it adds up to around £9,500 per year, tax-free, and it's paid on top of any other benefits that claimants are eligible for. Claimants with physical disabilities have previously complained that it's actually a lot harder for them to be eligible for this than those with mental health issues, in spite of some of them having conditions like fused joints where they can't easily walk. Those with mental health issues, by comparison, are far harder to disprove, and you can qualify for enhanced PIP, for example, by saying you have severe social anxiety to the point where you can't leave your house without your mother. If you qualify for enhanced PIP, you're able to enroll in the Motability Car Scheme. This scheme allows you to sacrifice part of your PIP to buy a car VAT-free and insurance included. The company says cars end up being around 42% cheaper than if you were to buy a new car the normal way. Motability is booming, with around 20% of the new cars sold in Britain last year being bought on the scheme. Britain's insane car market. A recent Substack article by Martin Robbins about the state of Britain's car market caught my eye, and it really highlights another way that the middle class in this country is becoming increasingly under pressure. The standard inflation numbers you see in the news works by averaging the price rises of a weighted bucket of standard goods that the average consumer buys. But this means that certain products can almost silently increase far beyond that rate and not affect the overall numbers. One of these products are new cars. Take the Ford Focus. Back in 2014, a new one would set you back £14,000 or around £18,000 in 2024 money using headline inflation figures. But how much does the Ford Focus actually cost in 2024? It's actually £30,000, unless you get it in a specific shade of red that saves you £1,000. So nearly double the 2014 price when you take inflation into account. Maybe this is just model specific. What's Ford's cheapest new car? Well, it's the Puma, an SUV that still sets you back £26,000. Back in 2014, you could buy a very popular Ford Fiesta for only £10,000, or around 13.5k in 2024 pounds, but that model was discontinued in 2023. So the cheapest new Ford car has doubled in price in real terms in the last decade. It's a similar story for pretty much every single car that was on the top 10 bestsellers list 10 years ago. And it's not like electric cars are any cheaper. They may offer a new environmentally friendly option, but they come with massive range issues, especially when it comes to the cheaper models and the UK's terrible charging network on top of it. So why have cars grown so much in price and size? There's so many SUVs nowadays over the last decade. The short answer is regulation from the government. A number of mandatory safety systems have been required from cars that require things like cameras, sensors, impact systems, electronics. These simply can't fit in a 2014 sized car, and it's meant that cars have had to become increasingly larger and also directly responsible for them becoming more expensive. The price of new cars doubling within the last 10 years isn't something that was consulted with by the public, by politicians, but it happened anyway. And the middle class has borne a large brunt of the pain. With the middle classes facing declining wages and the expensive items long considered middle class soaring, it's no wonder that it's causing political issues. The middle class has long been the bulwark of the democratic system. The majority of political parties in Britain attempt to appeal to the numerous professionals who count themselves amongst it. But as the decline of the middle class continues, we are seeing rising anti-government sentiment, a lack of trust in democracy, and even younger generations that have lost all faith in the capitalist system. It's no wonder then that populist voices are soaring in the polls. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Please like and subscribe if you did. And if you want to find out why work doesn't pay in modern Britain, one of the factors behind the decline of the middle class, then please watch this video here.